Once again, this is Carlin from Manning Mechanical, your Detroit boiler guys. I want to talk about maintenance on your steam boilers. These systems cost probably about twice as much as a forced air system, and they last twice as long. But the number one mistake that homeowners make is that we do not do the maintenance. The maintenance is very simple, and it comes down to just draining the boiler weekly. So I just want to go into how to drain your boiler, what you should do on a weekly basis to maintain your boiler for 20 to 30 years. So this is a brand new boiler that we just installed today. So I just want to take the time to go over this short video so that you can understand how to maintain this yourself. So the first thing that you need a decent bucket. We bought this bucket from Home Depot. It's a painter's bucket, but we like it because it's the same thickness as the larger 5-gallon buckets you would get from Home Depot or Lowe's. However, it's short and you can put it underneath the drain because the other buckets are too tall to get underneath. So once again, these buckets are probably maybe $5 or so. We provide all of our homeowners when we do our installations with these buckets. If you look here, you'll see your water level. Your water level, if you have a steam boiler, you probably already know this, but here you see the water level, and the water level generally is between 50% and 75% full based upon the amount of heat that's inside of the boiler. But the only thing that you have to do is you open up your drain, and the nice thing about our buckets that we provide homeowners is generally once you get up to the top, you're good. Now, while we're waiting for this to drain, all boilers, regardless of the manufacturers are, you're provided with a thing called a low water cutoff. This is supposed to protect the boiler and to keep the boiler from dry firing or overheating if there's not enough water. What we like to tell homeowners is to pay attention to the low water light that's located on the top of your low water cutoff. On this particular model, it's yellow, but some models it's red. So it's either going to be red or yellow. But we're draining the boiler. Once it gets below a certain point, a little light's going to come on. When that light comes on, then you're done draining the boiler. So let's just wait until we get to that point and wait for that light to come on, and then we can close this valve. And while we're waiting on that, we also have an automatic feeder on this particular boiler. Some boilers have automatic feeders, some do not. Most modern boilers do have an automatic feeder where you don't have to feed it yourself. But for those of you who do not have an automatic feeder, you understand how to feed your boiler because it's probably an older boiler. So at this point, we're almost to the top. So we're going to turn this drain off. I'm going to pause the video for a moment and then drain it some more to make sure that we get that proper light there. All right, so we're still draining our boiler here. Now you notice the water level is all the way down to the bottom. But for me, the most important thing that I'm looking for is to make sure that this yellow light comes on. Now there's your yellow light. So at this point, I can stop draining the boiler. And the fire is still going, but the fire should stop. And it just did. Nice thing about waiting for the yellow light is because you can tell if the low water cutoff is operating properly if the burners turn off. If the yellow light or red light comes on, but the burners don't turn off, then there's an issue and you have to call your local boiler company, or if you're in the greater Detroit area, you can call Manning Mechanical and we'll come out to see what that is. Because if it's not turning off, it may need like a annual maintenance. So again, as we wait for this boiler to fill, this is our automatic water feeder here. If you notice, it has a number 1 on the screen. These are very nice because it tells you how many times the boiler is actually feeding throughout the season. If you find that this number on a weekly basis is say greater than 15 then you should call for maintenance, because maybe you have a leak somewhere in your home that's allowing the boiler to feed too much, and you don't want that either. Most times your boiler is going to feed maybe once a day, maybe twice a day. So if you see that this number is exceeding, say, 20 a week, again, you need to call for maintenance. So there's generally a delay on these automatic feeders. Sometimes it's 90 seconds, sometimes it's 120 seconds. It just depends on how it's programmed. We generally program our automatic feeders to feed at about 90 seconds. So we'll wait for this to feed, and then once it feeds, you'll see the water fill up, and then that yellow light will turn off. Okay, so now that number 1 has turned into a number 2. The boiler is still slightly feeding, but if you notice, that yellow light is now off, and that water level is where it's supposed to be, and the water feeder just stopped. So once again, if you do this once a week during the winter, your boiler will last a long time. If you don't do it, then you may have to call us to put another boiler in, or your local boiler supplier, and you don't want to have to do that. So doing this simple task can save you a lot of money and a lot of frustration. Until next time, this is Matty Mechanical. We'll talk soon. So now the boiler is starting to fill up with water. You hear a little buzzing, and if you look inside, we have a number 1 still, but once it's finished feeding, that number 1 is going to turn into a number 2. So if we look down here, you'll start to see the water level rising, and then once that water level gets up to the appropriate level, that yellow light is going to turn off. So again, we'll pause the video, let it get to the top where it needs to be. Once it gets to that point, then you can start operating the boiler again.